Hello guys, this is Green Piggery. Today we want to talk about why our pig farrow a small number of litters sometime and sometime they will farrow plenty number of litters. That's what I mean here. Why do our pig give birth to small number of piglet and sometimes they will give birth to plenty number of piglet? Well, I've been giving out some tips on how we got to improve in our piggery business. So if you want to hear most of the tips that I'm giving out, what you got to do in order to improve and make more gain in your piggery business, that means you got to subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss out the tips that I'm giving out. If you subscribe, it's obvious that you will not miss out in any tips that I want to give out. So here today we are talking about why do our pigs sometimes give birth to small number of piglet. There is a lot of factors that influence this. One of these factors, although I'm not going to mention all the factors, I'm going to mention only important factors because there are a lot of factors that influence the size of the litter that we may have when our pig farrows. One of the factors may be the size of your gill. If your gill just give birth the first time, it is obvious that the number of the piglet that it will give birth to, it will farrow, may not be plenty. May not be plenty. Yes. Another factor is nutrition. Yes, another factor is nutrition. When your pig is under gestation period, either sow or gilt, the resulting piglet that will develop in the womb need a lot of vitamins. They need a lot of vitamin, carbohydrate, and everything. The 6 classes of food that is required for them to grow is highly needed in the body of the mother so that they would grow very fine and divide into plenty number of them, which will result in the number of piglet that you would that the pig would give birth to. So if availability of energy, vitamins and mineral is reduced in the mother, it is obvious that the number of piglet will also reduce. So that's why it's very important that you will feed your pig very fine. You have to give your pig food that is high in vitamin during the time they are in gestation period. You have to make sure that the food you give to them is very high in vitamin during the gestation period so that the energy and the vitamin supply will be enough in order to make your piglet to be plenty in number before the mother gave birth to. Yes. Another factor is genetics. What I mean by genetic, there are some pigs that usually give birth to reduced percentage of piglet. But I have made a video on that we should not go to that. The piglet that do not give birth to pigs that do not give birth to plenty of piglet. It is advisable that we get a good breed of pig that will give birth to number of piglet. The more number of piglet you have during farrow, the more better you will make gain than those ones that will give birth to just very few. Because I've seen some pigs that giving birth to very few number of piglet severally. That is not good with you as a farmer. So you want your pig to give birth to plenty number of a large size of litter, that is plenty number of piglet. So you got to follow these few procedure. When it comes to nutrition, that means you got to make sure that when your pig is under gestation period, you feed them very fine with food that is high in complete in vitamin. I made a video about the type of food that you need to give to your pig. So I have to make them to have a balanced, nutritious food, which will help them to grow fine and reproduce fine. So then another thing is another important factor why our pig may give birth to reduced number of piglet is the effect of this boar. The boar that is to fertilize your sow or your gill has a greater effect on the number of piglet that your piglet will give birth to. That is, if the boar is small, is young, that is about 8 months to 1 year old, his ability of reproduction will be small, especially if there is a lot of pig in the farm that he will have to fertilize in a week, compared to a boar that is more older and more stronger and big. So the amount of semen that it will reproduce and the energy and the ability would thereby be reduced in that of the younger pig, but that of the older and more stronger pig would increase. So this also increase the size of the litter that you have. The reduced fertility of the boar would also give you a reduced number of piglet, but the increased fertility of the boar due to the size and energy would also give you the increased fertility or the increased number of piglet. The other factor I'm going to mention here is a disease during reproduction. Yes, this one is that you have to make sure that you treat your sore or your guilt with all the necessary vitamins and all the necessary drugs before you crossbreed them. And you make sure that you treat them of all diseases, all veterinary disease. When you give them all necessary treatment, all the veterinary treatment before you crossbreed them. If they are very sound and healthy during crossbreed, that means they are bound to give birth to plenty number of litters. But if they were sicky or have one disease or the other, it's likely they will give birth to reduced number of piglet. There is a lot of factors according to research, but those one I mentioned are very, very important. Those one I mentioned are very, very important that you need to consider if you want to have a high size or high size of litter when you are pig farrows. So if you can take these few things into consideration and work toward this, that means you are bound to have a high size of litter when you are pig farrows. There are some breed of pig that I mentioned that will farrow up to 12 to 18 piglet. Some of them will farrow from 10 to 15. Some of them will farrow 8 to 12. But it is a surprise that sometimes you will see some pigs that will give birth to only 3, 4, or 5 piglet. Those aren't good with you. So you need to put these few tips into consideration and you will see that the number of your litter will improve greatly. Well, that was your green pig grow on your screen, telling you some tips how you got to improve or how you got to get a high size of a litter when you are pig farrows. Bye bye, till next time.